Hi, guys.
You said hi before I started filming.
No, you pressed the record button. As soon as I said hi, it was red. All right, as soon as it was red, I said hi.
Well, I'll be the one to judge when I'm looking at this later, but I'm pretty sure you said...
I timed it. I was waiting.
I'm pretty sure all people are going to hear is, "Hi, guys."
Let me know.
All right. Hey, guys. Howdy. And welcome back to the We Should Talk More podcast. My name is Cliff, and I'm your host and local cowboy.
Yeah, and my name is Josh Coronel.
Why don't you tell people what this podcast is all about, Josh?
This podcast is about John's trip down to Texas. And his way back, he watched a film called The Silver Lining Playbook for the 20th time or so.
Yeah.
Which is his favorite all-time film. So we plan on actually dissecting it a little bit, talking about it.
I was throwing it to you to say what the podcast was about.
Yeah, that's what this podcast costs.
Do you want to restart?
That's what this podcast is about.
This is the podcast is about two lifelong friends who don't have much in common, trying to get a little bit closer.
The synergy.
And we are talking about Silver Linings Playbook, but
hold on to my mic.
No problem, brother. No problem, partner.
I remember this was a great solution last time, especially when we had wine.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Oh, I got a new office chair. That's it.
That doesn't look all that new, but I do see that it has some massage buttons.
Yeah, it's just brown.
That's cool.
Anyways, welcome back, guys. For you, it's just been a week. For us, it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was a nice
How great
break.
is that? Yeah,
it was a nice break. How was your break?
my break was great. I went down.
Wait for coffee hour.
Oh yeah, you're right. My break was great.
That's cool.
How was your break?
Oh, wonderful.
See, I got right in. I think you told me once. You give me a few seconds. I get a few seconds after you asked.
Oh,
me.
So
I tried to get in. I didn't want to.
Oh,
if it went past 5 seconds, it would have been rude.
I wasn't even grateful.
Oh, fuck. Just trying not to come off rude anymore.
Thank you. What he's saying is that I've called him out a few times for not reciprocating questions like that. Just because I like to be a dick to him.
No, but you know what? I've noticed I do that a lot. So that was like a fair critique, because I don't understand social cues that well, which is what a good thing that we're getting into Silver Linings Playbook.
I do think we all suffer a little bit from not understanding social cues.
Yeah, it's a common issue.
Yeah, so anyway, this week we are talking about The Silver Lining Playbook, one of John's favorite films. We'll get into it as we usually do for most film episodes. We're going to get through a couple different topics that we like to touch upon, and I'll let John go through what that is.
Let me just lift my massive boot over. So typical to our film episodes, which if you haven't watched the other ones, we just finished going through the whole Before trilogy. So consistent with those episodes, we will discuss the plot of the film, where we just touch on our favorite scenes and just why they resonated to us for whatever reason. We talk about the themes that we noticed in the films, what we liked, whatever resonated to us in that way. We talk about the characters. For the Before trilogy, we mainly touched on the two basically only characters that are in the film, but for other films, we can talk about any characters that exist and just talk about their traits and what we liked and maybe disliked about them. And then we talk about the filmmaking, which is where we just talk about mumbo jumbo, like cinematography, music, lighting, whatever you name it. And then we finish off with a review.
Yeah.
1 to 10.
And as always, we only talk about romance movies.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be pretty consistent through this.
Next week, we're talking about The Social Network.
Very beautiful romance.
Beautiful romance. So to stay along with the theme, we're doing it again today.
Yes. And I do think that's great. I feel like if we only talked about rom-coms, that'd be kind of funny. that might be an interesting thing.
Well, I don't know how much of a rom-com.
Well, not rom-com,
I
guess just like romantic movies.
Yeah,
romantic movies.
This one more so than the Before is a rom-com.
Yeah,
definitely.
Which is something I'll get into. But I remember when I brought up this movie, we mentioned this on a previous episode where we had like a random, not really date, but when we went to McSwirly's in New York.
Yeah.
And I told the girl that I was sitting next to who was interested in film that I like Silver Linings.
right.
I named Silver Linings Playbook as a rom-com that I liked because she said that she likes rom-coms, and she's like, I wouldn't consider that a rom-com. And I was like, but it kind of is, but I guess it's a rom-com drama. It's like somewhere in between those three, because I think they stay on the lighthearted side, but they do touch on a little dramatic. There are some dramatic moments, but
I guess that's something we can discuss a little bit.
yeah, how we would classify it, because I'm sure to some people I would consider it more. There are really funny moments in the movie. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be exciting to talk about this movie. The Before trilogy meant a lot to Josh, like going through those. So I think this film means as much to me as the Before trilogy meant to you.
Yep. So I've been dreading this one.
So it's like a cool thing now to go over one of my favorite movies. But before we even talk about it, what are you drinking today?
Free Wawa iced coffee. It is. You probably are listening to this on a Wednesday because that's when we release, but it is Wawa Tuesdays.
Wawa Tuesdays, baby,
where we get free coffee, at least for this month, I think. So I'm sipping on that. It's pretty good. But what about yourself? I'm
drinking a mocha cold brew with almond milk.
Yeah, it looks like trash.
It kind of is. It's okay, but I wanted to treat myself. It's been a stressful day back to work. Which
you really don't have too much liquid in the cup, though.
No, because I'm going for like as if I'm drinking a whiskey.
Yeah. On the rocks.
On the rocks.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, how was your week? You just got back to work?
Oh yeah, so I just got back to work. I had 2 days off. I had Friday and Monday off. I was in Dallas, Texas.
Dallas.
I went to see a Cowboys game with my dad, and we also just did like Texas stuff.
Was that the biggest motivation to watch a Dallas game?
Yeah, that was like the only reason. My dad will rarely go to new places, and the first time he went to Dallas was like 5 years ago, and he only went to watch the game. So same for this one. It's like to watch the game. I was down to go because I want to go to different states. I'm like,
of course.
I can check off Texas now.
My God. Wait, how many states does that make for this year now? Were you planning on Texas?
No, I was not.
Until like just this past month?
Yeah, I guess like, I don't know when my dad got it, maybe September. But yeah, like it wasn't planned.
Okay.
For new states, Arizona, Illinois, Wisconsin, Utah. So 4. Oh, and I guess technically Colorado, but I drove in and drove out. Basically.
Got you. Okay, but Texas is not new to you.
Oh wait, sorry, 6 then Texas. Sorry, I was naming the other ones and I didn't even name the most recent one.
6 new states,
6, which is I think I mentioned the 10 things I want to do. I only plan to do 3. So
you doubled down.
I doubled it. Yeah,
that's 1/20th of the states. Yeah. Just about a little bit more.
Yeah. So I think now it's getting to the point where I have to actually look at the ones that, because like when you haven't gone to many, you could just go anywhere and you probably haven't been there. But now it's like I have to deliberately plan trips to places. Like I have to think more about where I want to go.
Got you.
But we still have some exciting ones like California.
I just did the math again. It's 1/10 of the states.
1/10?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you do 10 times
not
more.
Too bad.
You're pretty much there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I could do
10 years. In 10 years, bro.
10 years. Who got this?
Wow. You'll be to every state. I mean, you've already been to a good fraction. So you may fewer.
Oh, yeah. We're not. Yeah.
So but fewer than 10 years.
I feel like, how would you consider it? Would you consider like, I think I have to sleep somewhere for me to count as like visit. So like even Colorado, I just drove through. So I don't know if I would count.
No, you have to make a friend.
Make a friend?
Yeah, you have to make a friend. In
so I haven't been to any states. I've been to New Jersey. That's funny.
Nice.
That's I feel like I heard that from, unless you're the one that told me this, but I think maybe we had that conversation before. You mentioned like making a friend is like a true mark of like being somewhere.
No, I don't think I've ever said it until today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It feels like something you might have said when we were in Arizona, but maybe
could have been. I got some like people Snapchats from Arizona. I think I made a friend. I made a LinkedIn connection.
Oh, with those guys. Yeah, with those random guys we met on the last night.
Yeah, I don't really have a way to follow up with them outside of LinkedIn. I think you have their number. But
I have one of
the
their numbers, but anyways, how was your week or
It's
your,
really
your
nice.
weekend?
So I didn't go to Texas, but I did get my nails done this week. Look at them,
I saw you sent the a photo
for the YouTube viewers. There we go. Check that out. I made it work. It only dropped one phone in the process.
I know. You almost dropped mine.
Yeah. Outside of that, I didn't really do much. Did I see anyone? Oh, took photos.
Yeah, I saw that. That was cool.
Yeah, I finally, after getting the Tesla back in September, beginning of September, me and Josh, there's another guy in our friend group named Josh, friend of the show. He doesn't really listen.
That's fair. It's fair.
If he does, I mean, he can call me out on it.
Yeah.
I don't think he will. So, friend of the show, Josh, he got a Tesla alongside me, and we've been planning for the past 2 months to go out for a photo shoot. Finally, I went over to his place this past week just because I was also looking to get a massage gun. I was telling you about this just earlier before the show. And he has one, so he invited me over so he can give me, a massage in his bed. So we did that. He massaged me all over, and in that time frame, we made plans to go take photos of our car. So we decided on a place. He sent it to me, and it was to have like the New York City skyline. I arrive, I go up, and I'm like, God damn, the spot we chose is fucking perfect. So it is the ferry parking garage. Ferry to New York City parking garage, something like that.
Oh wait, how did he find out about this place?
So he found pictures, but he did not intend for me to actually go in the garage. It wasn't until I arrived before him and I went inside the garage and went to the top floor and sent him a picture. He realized how good of a spot he found without intentionally finding it.
Oh.
He just thought we would take a picture around that area.
Oh, so he just gave you that location as
a reference point.
Did you have to pay to go in the garage?
Yeah, $6.
Oh, okay, that's not bad at all.
It's not bad.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it turned out well. We took pictures. It was fucking freezing. Shout out to Jamie, Josh's girlfriend, for sticking it through with us.
Did you bring two outfits? Because I saw that you were wearing, I like this turtleneck, and I saw you were wearing that one photo. I'm like, that's a nice turtleneck. And I went and I'm like, he's not wearing it anymore.
So I brought 3 jackets.
Oh.
To
change?
And try out different ones.
Yeah,
I took most of them with the blue jacket that you saw most of the photos in because it was warmer, but also it was the last one that I tried on and I just didn't feel like changing again. So I had that. I had a jean jacket as well. I think you've seen that one a few times. Unfortunately, all the jean jacket photos were with Josh, and Josh said he looked like a dumb fuck in each one. So, I wasn't allowed to post any of those.
That's very mature of you to respect someone's feelings and how they look in a photo.
For real. I have to try.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do the same for you.
No, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't either.
It's fair.
But it is what it is. We have her face all over the internet at this point. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it does. But
I think having like funny photos of you like is cooler. Like so long as you like have like the good ones like on your account. Like I don't mind when people, because it's like that's who you are. That's like if you're having fun. Like if I'm like in a really gross like position or something, like if it's like a really disgusting photo, like I wouldn't want that. But if I'm just like have a weird face or something, it's like it's just fun.
It is what it is.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
People are gonna capture pictures of you. When you're so well known, they're gonna find every angle to make you look bad.
When the popper, oh my god, I just remembered, which I have to mention on the podcast.
Go for it.
Speaking about being famous and getting photos of you, I won't say I met him, but I saw Ethan Hawke at the hotel that I was staying at in Dallas.
The photo in frame.
Oh, it'll pop up. It'll pop up in the edit. Man, that was crazy. I was outside of the hotel waiting for the valet to bring our Ford F-150 to me and my dad. We rented a Ford. My dad might buy a Ford F-150 because they're really nice. They're super spacious, but
they are getting electric.
They are, and I was telling him that I'm like just wait for the electric one and get that one instead, because like then you won't, because those Fords have really bad gas
with
mileage.
Gas, of course.
We see a guy coming. He's wearing a mask, but so I'm wearing my cowboy hat. Like we already went to the store, and he's wearing a different cowboy hat. It's like a thinner, like it's not as high up as mine. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, that's a cool hat. And my dad's like, that's a stupid hat. He's like, that looks kind of weird. And he's coming down the street, and then he's standing next to us waiting for a car as well. I'm like looking over at him, just admiring his hat. Like I didn't think he was anybody until he takes his mask off, and I'm like,
does he have the goatee?
He had a goatee.
Oh no.
He had like I don't know if it was like as thick. Yeah, it wasn't as thick, but I'm like, that is Ethan Hawke, I think. Like I don't know. Like I was kind of nervous, but he's a lot thinner than I expected him to be. I mean, he is a lot older. The only reference I have from him is a movie from like nine years ago. No,
that is true. It was 2013.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that it's been like, I don't really know how he looks like, but he's at our hotel, and he's goes online to get coffee, and I'm just looking at him, and my dad's like, oh, is that him? I'll go ask him for a photo. My dad would ask him.
He would.
But I was just like, my mouth was literally open. I think just like the fact that we literally just finished watching those movies, I was like I was literally just standing there like, I don't know, like if this is real. It was crazy. But we see him. I'm still like not 100% it's him, but he gets picked up by an SUV that's like picking him up. So he has a driver. The driver's like comes out, opens the door for him. And in his car, he has like a gray suit that's like in a clear like sheet, like I guess maybe just pressed or whatever for him to put it on. So I noticed both of those things, which are important details, because I Googled him right after that, and I saw that there was a film festival that him and Richard Linklater were going to in Fort Worth, which is right next to Dallas. When I saw that, I was like, motherfucker, this guy was at my hotel.
Opportunity.
And then I got the double confirmation when I saw how he was dressed later. Same hat that I said I liked, and the gray suit that I saw in the car. Wow. I was like,
you even saw what was inside his car.
I know. I literally looked in. I saw he had the suit, and I saw like his luggages. I was like, damn.
And he didn't recognize you.
He didn't recognize me.
Wow, what a shame.
It would have been amazing if I actually got a photo with him, because like to post that on our account after having gone, I'm like, that would have been amazing. So me and my dad were like staking out the hotel like throughout the weekend, like hoping we would run into him again. But no, I think he was leaving. Like when we saw him, like that thing, and he was like fully leaving the hotel that day. But anyways, that's my anecdote.
That was quite a coffee hour. That was quite a coffee hour.
That was a coffee millennium.
Yep. All right, let's jump into it. No more wasted time.
We can jump right into it.
So background, John?
I'll just give a quick background. This is Silver Linings Playbook, which is what we're going to be talking about right now. My favorite film. I'll usually say it's my favorite film whenever anybody asks me. I think similar to you, where you'll like the movie that you recommend to people is the Before trilogy. I'll usually recommend Silver Linings Playbook. Not in context of going on dates though.
Oh, okay. Just trying to cover yourself, huh?
Yeah, I know. Me and Maggie started watching. I just don't want her to think that I've been watching it with every other all of my other girlfriends. But no.
Which girlfriend was the best to watch it with?
None. I've never watched it with anybody else. But we first watched the movie in high school together. Our teacher, our psych teacher, exposed us to it. I only really started to love it in college, because I would watch it whenever I was feeling sad in any like situation revolving like one of the girls that we've spoken about in our episodes.
Jalapeno, habanero, Carolina Pepper.
Check out our college dating episodes if you want to know about that. But it became my go-to film, like a comfort film, like just to watch like whenever I was feeling low. So I used to benchmark how I was feeling by the distance of time that I would watch that movie. So until these last couple weeks, where it was like 3 weeks ago where I watched it with Maggie, I probably haven't watched that movie like over a year, which is maybe good, but it's still a good movie. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to add.
Does that mean that you're peaking?
Maybe.
It was like a whole year?
Yeah, maybe.
Got you.
Cool. But now I've watched it twice, like within a couple weeks, so I don't know what's gonna happen now.
Oh wow. Okay, not a good sign.
And I recently got the book for my birthday.
Oh, that's right.
I wish I could have read more of it. I'll touch a little bit on it, like when we get into the episode, just like differences maybe. But I'll save that for the end.
Gotcha.
But I'll let you do the summary if you're ready.
Oh no, I wasn't.
I feel like I'm running out of breath.
Oh well, I mean, I think it was your turn for the summary, but I'll try my best. This guy just gets released from a mental psychiatric hospital.
Pat.
And he has a dad whose also name is Pat. We can call him Pat Seniors for the purposes of this show. And he always wanted to get back with his ex-wife. He still does. He entered into the psychiatric hospital after catching his wife cheating on him with the high school history teacher, I think it was.
Yeah, they both worked at the same high school.
Yeah, it was kind of odd. And he beat up the history teacher, and he got put into a psychiatric hospital for 8 months, I think it was. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He meets this other girl who has some mental disorders, something like some personality issues. They both are very bad with social cues. They will say things that you shouldn't really say, but they make a deal. For Pat to be able to speak to his ex-wife, Nikki, he would write a letter, and what's her name? Tiffany would deliver the letter for him.
And Nikki has a restraining order on him. That's why he's doing that.
That is true. There's a restraining order in place. And so in exchange for that, Tiffany will ask him to do a dance competition with her. So they practice for this dance competition. They do the dance competition, and spoiler, they get a 5 out of 10, which was part of a parlay that they had with Pat's dad, Pat Senior, who is a betting man when it comes to sports. Sports will be a big theme throughout this movie. And there was a parlay to say if the Eagles will beat the Cowboys.
It's Cowboys.
It was the Cowboys.
I just watched them.
Which you just watched baby. Them. There you go. If the Eagles will beat the Cowboys, and if Pat and Tiffany will score 5 out of 10 on this dance competition. Parlay is a match of 2 different bets that are independent of each other. If they win this dance competition and they win the Eagles game, then Pat Senior will get enough money to open up this business of his.
Yeah. I think like right before that, Pat Senior loses all the money that he put in the business. So it's like it was like double or nothing. So he was basically gonna lose all the money he had saved and owe a ton more to this other guy who was like betting against them. So that's like the main what would you call it, conflict, I guess, towards the end of the film. It's like circled around like them not like fucking up like their financial situation.
Yeah. And so I mean that's what it is. And they end up winning the parlay, and at the end Pat goes to finally speak to Nikki.
Oh yeah, she's invited to the dance.
That's right. So at the dance, Nikki arrives. Pat was finally happy to finally see her. Tiffany was surprised because she wasn't actually planning on having Nikki arrive, but she promised Pat, lying to him, that Nikki would be there. She does actually arrive. After the competition, Pat approaches Nikki, says something in her ear, and Tiffany runs off crying because she's been heartbroken, thinking that, well, there it goes. There's her shot with this guy who has some mental disorders that she was actually interested in. But Pat was chased after her and confessed his love. And that was the close of the film. Something like that.
Yeah. Because Tiffany thinks that she's tricking Pat by the end of the film by having him go through with the dance competition to see Nikki, but he actually figures it out. He figures it out because Tiffany gives him a letter saying it's from his wife, and there's a saying in the letter that is, if it's me reading the signs, and Tiffany says that those words, like it's like a thing, a phrase that she says, and she says it like 3 different times in the film. So he catches it one time when she says it, and then he goes back and reads the letter, and he puts 2 and 2 together, but he doesn't tell her that he knows until after the dance. So the whole time in the dance, he has no intention to get back with Nikki. I guess I mean, we can discuss this later. I'm curious like what you think he talks to Nikki about, because there's like a part where he whispers in her ear,
and we have no clue.
But I mean, we are under the understanding that he was just getting a sort of closure with her and was only talking to her just to be friendly, and was really already in like had feelings and knew he had feelings for Tiffany. He just was trying to be romantic and by not letting her know.
Yeah. I mean, and all throughout the film, it's discussed that Pat is interested in Nikki, and like everything that he does is for Nikki.
Yeah.
So it's not until the very end of the film that you realize that he's gotten past that and is willing to go and be honest with himself about his love for Tiffany.
Yeah. I was thinking, should we do characters first? I don't know if it makes more sense to talk about the characters and then the themes, because the themes have to do with the characters. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right.
That makes sense. Wow, I just realized I didn't write much for characters.
I was jotting down notes when I was watching this on the plane ride to Texas. So I have a lot.
That's good.
Well, I'll touch upon the so I wrote down all the characters' names. The really main characters here are Pat and Tiffany. They get the most screen time.
Yeah.
I'll just like go through the like major side characters: Pat Senior and Dolores, who's Pat's mom. There's Danny, who's Chris Tucker, who's like the other mental patient who multiple times throughout the film shows up and then gets taken back to the mental hospital.
See that's the like
the funny
comedic aspect of the film.
And I guess like touching on characters like him, I like that they have that, because I feel like the film there's a lot of heavy moments, like a lot of sad. I feel like it could be a different movie if it didn't have like the funny like parts like sprinkled throughout, because like some of the stuff is kind of tragic, and it could be portrayed in a more tragic way depending on who's like making it. But there's Ronnie and Veronica. Ronnie is a close friend of Pat. Veronica is Ronnie's wife, who's also Tiffany's sister. So that's how the connection between Pat and Tiffany is made. They're also a comedic couple. It's like played up because they have like a weird marriage and like they're not happy at the moment.
Would you call it comedic?
Well, I think
comedic in what way?
Well, with Ronnie like talking about how he has like the pressure, and like talking about like how Veronica he says like Veronica doesn't hate Pat, but throughout the film it seems like Veronica doesn't like Pat.
Yes,
like those little moments. I think Ronnie is definitely more of a funnier character, because he's just like,
I mean, you don't really get too much screen time of Veronica.
Yeah,
she's just always on the side not talking.
Yeah, but Ronnie's sweet, I guess. He's not as funny as Danny though. He's not the comedic relief.
I think he's a very wholesome character.
Yeah, I think, well, the thing that I noted with Ronnie too is I think him and Veronica are interesting because they have issues that Pat kind of helps them through, because Pat gives Ronnie the advice of like, oh, you don't give up on a marriage, but like Pat's saying that because he thinks he's still married with Nikki even though they're separated. Yeah. So like he's giving him advice through his delusional thinking, but it actually ends up helping them, because I think by the end of the film Ronnie makes a comment about like them like sticking through, or I don't know, that it's not like a major plot point, but anyways, there's Jake, who's Pat's younger brother, who's more successful than him. Dr. Cliff Patel, who's the Indian psychiatrist of Pat's.
Gotta love him.
He's probably my favorite character. He's so sweet.
You think so?
I think he's sweet.
No, I think he's sweet.
Well, yeah. There's I wrote down Officer I think it's I checked on Amazon. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's the cop that shows up throughout the film, because he's like on the beat of Pat's neighborhood, so they get the cops called on them a lot because they have a lot of outbursts. And then I have the character of Nikki, who's honestly like a non-character.
Yeah, you know, when I first started the film, I was like, okay, the two protagonists of this film will probably be Pat and Nikki.
Yeah.
And then find out that it's not Nikki at all. I'm like, where the fuck is Nikki? I don't see her. It's not until like the very end do you finally get to see Nikki. I don't think you see her at all before.
Yeah. In the book, at least from what I know, like there's a little more of her. Like you learn more about her. I feel like in the movie you really don't get any information besides Pat's perspective.
Yeah.
Speaking about Pat, I looked up both his and Tiffany's diagnoses. I didn't catch it when I watched it, but apparently Pat is the only one that gets an actual mention of a diagnosis. So he has bipolar disorder with mood swings and weird thinking patterns brought on by severe stress. Tiffany is not explicitly diagnosed, but people online, when they have a conversation about the medications that they were on.
Oh, okay.
So people, based on what she said, like they can tell that she was on some anxiety medication, and also most likely has borderline personality disorder, just based on how her behavior is. There was like an article that I was reading this morning from a psychiatrist analyzed the film and was saying like,
I think I was able to find that one. I didn't read it through, but what did you find?
So yeah, so they agree that she most likely had borderline personality disorder, or she could have been manic as well, because she has a lot of similar personality traits to Pat, with like just not being able to control like her impulses of like just saying things, having outbursts. The thing that she very clearly has that's mentioned, not like diagnosed, but it's mentioned, is she had depression. So bipolar and depression sometimes come together. You can have bipolar depression disorder. So she mentioned in the film that she she was depressed when her husband died,
which I think we failed to mention.
Which we failed to mention is like a big thing for her character. Later on in the film, she then mentions that she was depressed even before he died, where she had stopped having sex with him. So she just has some form of depression that it's not related to her husband's death. So I think that's just important because like I feel like you could think that maybe she became that way because of her husband's death, but it seems like she might have had stuff before that. She's just,
I mean, another good point as far as the plot is that after her husband died, she starts having sex with everyone.
She does. So she has a reputation of being very promiscuous, at least like because of what she did, having sex with all her coworkers, and she got fired because of that. And then there's like people in the neighborhood who come just to harass her, like have sex
booty
with her,
calls.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Booty calls.
I mean, and you find that out very early on when you meet her because she's offering Pat to come into her room that is completely separate from her parents. That hey, we can have sex real quick if you want.
Yeah, which is very interesting introduction to her. The thing I really liked about Tiffany that I think is consistent throughout the film, and she says this right after she offers to have sex, is that she says that she's not a liar. Like she tells Pat like we're not liars like the rest of them. So I think because she's very upfront with how she feels throughout the film, she's not only upfront with how she feels, but upfront with who she is. Like, she acknowledges that she's like she has issues. She's also very accepting that she has issues. Like there's a line where she says that she likes all the messy parts of her. Like she loves those parts too. And could Pat say the same? And Pat can't say the same. So that's something I really liked about her. I think her and Pat have that dichotomy where Pat is super optimistic, but almost to a fault, where he wants to be better, but is like not accepting any of the bad parts of himself. So he's constantly talking about wanting to become a better man, but there's like aspects of him that maybe can't be changed, like his mental illness, that he rejects.
Yeah, coming out of the hospital, he's very into fitness and he's reading a lot of books. Both things to really impress Nikki is the way that they portrayed the story. Books because Nikki was an English teacher, and so I think he was going through it's a high school, right? The high school curriculum that Nikki teaches. So he was reading books like Grapes of Wrath, Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, and I don't know if there's any other books that
they mentioned. Lord of the Flies.
Oh, Lord of the Flies, and then Tiffany spoils the book for that one.
Yeah. Well, I'll touch on that on the themes because there's something I liked about both of those books. But to touch on Pat a bit, something that I read from what the psychologist was saying too is that he's diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which for people who don't know, bipolar disorder usually comes with people who go up and down between extreme mania and very low depression. Pat, we only see mania. Like we see his outbursts. We rarely see we see his like explosions. He's the explosion guy. But we don't really see as often like just moments of him being sad, like unable to get out of bed, like typical like depression symptoms. So people critique his disorder because of that. But the psychologist against that said that bipolar disorder is different for everybody. So there's some people who you could have bipolar disorder, but you're more on the manic side than the depression side. Or you could be more on the depression side than the manic side. And also some people experience like weeks of a lot of mania, and then they have like weeks after of like depression. So it's not like on and off, like flipping a switch. It's like it works differently. And then they also said for the entertainment of a film, they understand why they would only show the mania because the explosions throughout the film, one of the most like notable ones is where he's looking for the wedding video and he's like flipping out and he like accidentally hits his mom and then his dad jumps on him and starts hitting him. That's like a manic episode. They even said that him beating up the history teacher is a manic episode. You could call it that, but also, I mean, it's something that a lot of people could do. I think a lot of men would do. So like they said like they don't want to mark like manic episodes as solely being violent because it's things that anybody could do. So like the psychologist just wanted to make that clear, but like most likely it was because it's just the thing
the nature of what you see across as a through line. Do
you have anything else to add for either of their characters? Let me ask you this: do you have any like things that you didn't like about their characters?
Didn't like about their characters? Bothering people in the middle of the night is definitely not that kind. That's something that Pat would do, in the example that you just used about waking up his whole family to find a wedding video, and then also one time because he was upset about the ending of Ernest Hemingway's book of The Farewell to Arms. And that's to your point too of him being very optimistic, and he didn't find the appreciation or value in a story that didn't end happily.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always a huge conflict to him. But to add anything to what you said, I don't think there's much to add. I mean, you gave a great summary of the two characters.
I think the only thing I would mention, and I think you might have mentioned it, is so Pat doesn't consider himself, at least early in the film, to be similar to Tiffany. So there's the whole thing where they have the fight on their date, I don't know, on Halloween, where he doesn't want to be associated with her kind of behavior.
Right, yeah.
So Pat, early in the film, with his whole positivity thing, doesn't view himself as being as crazy as people, where he very clearly is, at least with Tiffany. They're very similar. But he views himself differently.
Views himself as better. Yeah.
But I like that she makes the point where he views her behavior as bad, but he loves hearing about it. Like, he loved hearing about the sex like stories that she was telling. He was so like interested in it, and like he doesn't feel like he's like that, but he still enjoys like hearing about it. So she like calls him out on that, because like despite feeling different than her, he still loved hearing about it. So it's like she's just calling him out because he's kind of being hip, because he has a side of him that's a little.
I think he likes to hear that he's better than other people.
Yeah.
So like hearing the shitty things or behaviors that someone else would do. He likes to hear the stuff, but he wouldn't be honest with himself about maybe sharing any of those attributes. And because he doesn't acknowledge that, he sees this story as, well, I'm a better person. So like the more negative stuff you tell me about yourself, it just feeds into the positivity of my own life.
Yeah. Which is very interesting.
Which is just my take.
He later on kind of changes with the way he views it. I think with the sexual stories, like he there's a line that he says that Nikki never let him talk like that, or she didn't like when he talks like that. So it's like he's still like, I think part of him.
Do you know what it was that
like talking dirty?
At all.
Yeah, because he's like, Nikki never liked when we
did dirty
talk like this, is what he says. So like, I guess like,
that was like more public.
Yeah. Well, no, not in public. I think he just meant like talk like about sex stuff,
but like as a standard conversation.
Yeah, as like a conversation,
not like a conversation in bed where you can't have dirty talk.
Yeah. But I just think it's like, because you still see that he's like interested in hearing about it. So it's like something that he maybe would want to talk about, but it's like his whole obsession with Nikki is like he's still not letting himself be his true self, because he's like, I gotta be the man that Nikki wants.
So yeah, I guess that like uncovers some of his true colors, where it's like, well, or maybe he's just discovering it too, where you might only find you enjoy having a conversation about something once you finally get the opportunity to have that conversation. Yeah.
And I think it's the thing too, is like he's so in denial. Yeah, like he might not actually know that that's something that he would be interested in, because he's just so like he's so,
surface level of what he knows.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I wrote a little bit for like the parents. Pat Senior's basically a lot like Pat. He has like explosive tendencies to himself, but he also doesn't view himself at first being very similar to Pat. And they have a lot of there's a disconnect between them.
Huge disconnect.
Where they can't really connect in the same way that he could maybe with like his son or with anybody else. So football, as you mentioned, is like a big part of the film. It's like the main way that they can connect. And I feel like Pat's mom isn't like a huge character, other than just being very she's like a classic mom, I think. She's just a very supportive, and she's worried all the time.
She cooks for the Sunday events, the football games. Yeah. She's there to go along with whatever the dad is, whatever issues he's going through.
There's a thing that I don't know if you caught it. I noticed it for the first time watching like this time around, which is funny because I've watched it so many times. But there's like a throwaway line at the end of the film where Pat Senior mentions that the mom, Dolores, was letting Tiffany know where Pat was jogging. So that's how she was finding him throughout the film.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
So I mean, like I saw some on Wikipedia that it was mentioned that somehow they were conspiring together, and I didn't get that line.
Yeah,
I wasn't understanding it, and I tried to like dig a little deeper, but I couldn't figure it out. Yeah, so that's what it was.
I think that's what it was. The mom was like, I guess like she was looking out for Pat, but she wanted to kind of help him out, I guess, with this girl, but she was like letting her know where where he was jogging.
That's so cool.
That's how she finds him, which it's funny because like it's like a thing that happens throughout the film that you don't really understand.
Notice,
Like,
yeah.
he's just jogging and she just shows up out of nowhere.
She'll just chase after his ass.
Yeah.
Okay. That persistence was so uncanny. I don't know. It was interesting to see.
Yeah.
Where this girl who has mental issues is chasing after somebody who's like not all that interesting in the first place. Like the last person you'd want to chase.
Yeah.
She's chasing.
Yeah.
But it's just that like shared connection that she sees with him.
And I think especially earlier in the movie when they have the conversation about the medication that they're on, like they make that connection.
Oh yeah,
like,
you see that immediately.
Yeah, so I think maybe to her, like this is somebody that like gets me. Like so that's like when she offers him sex. I mentioned the line before, but she's like they're not like us. So like she views them as like a similar thing.
And she's honest about it.
Yeah.
While you see in that moment too, and we already talked about it. Pat is like, well, no,
Yeah.
I'm only just trying to get my wife back. And
Yeah.
I don't want to spend time with somebody who's crazy like you.
Yeah, and he judges her for saying that she's still married to her dead husband, even though he says that he's still married to the wife that cheated and left him.
Yep.
But let's talk about the themes now.
Yeah. One of the interesting ones is what we already mentioned is sports. I like the sports aspect of this a lot because you see that's what holds the family together every Sunday. But it also causes a lot of strife between Pat and Pat Sr. because that's the only thing that Pat Sr. is trying to connect with Pat over. He doesn't really know many other ways to connect with him. It's not until like the very near end of the film where he finally understands that that relationship that Tiffany and Pat have. And appreciates it. Do they connect? But all throughout the film is really just football that's kind of holding them together.
I just realized while we were going over this that we skipped over our favorite scenes, but we could just do it after theme.
Oh yeah, no, I thought that's what you were going for, to work back.
Work back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we could do that.
I think it was like, well, the themes was kind of a little bit more telling, and then the plot we can get a little bit more specific.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense because we're not like explaining who the characters are before we talk about the scenes.
Yeah.
I like the whole sport aspect to it. Are you a big sport fan? Because I'm not a big sport fan.
I thought you were.
I'm not.
Really?
But I enjoy. I think one of the reasons that I really like this movie is I relate to that aspect of like sports or some kind of thing being a reason to bring a family together. Like going to watch a game with my dad. Like he's the one that really likes the Cowboys, but like it's fun to be there with him. Like it's a point of connection.
Yeah, no, I think that was like very sweet, like watching this film, or very wholesome throughout the film. They start the film when he's doing his like monologue in his psychiatric cell talking about the Sunday games. I think they also close off with him having a little bit of a monologue
Talking about Sundays again.
Yeah, Sundays again. So it's the Sunday football games that really holds throughout the film, and it's kind of just sweet to hear. Whether you like sports or not, I don't think like Dolores likes sports. She just does it to be part of the family.
Yeah, and I think it must be like for people who are really big into like football or any like sport like that. I'm sure they could relate to that a lot, like that aspect of it bring a family together, bringing people together. It's a big thing with like Pat and his dad, which it's my favorite scene. So I'll talk about it like when we talk about the plots. But football is like one of the only ways that they can connect, or like that the dad feels that like they can connect, because like he doesn't really know how else to connect with his son.
Yep.
And it's kind of sad.
It truly is.
But it's sad, but it's like in a way that you can see that as being a thing that really exists.
Yeah, no,
like,
I like that a lot because I thought that was very relatable to a lot of families.
Yeah, for sure. The other one that I put here, and I saw that you put it too, so you can talk about it as well, but Excelsior. It's a big thing that's said throughout the film. I have it written on my whiteboard over there. Pat mentions at the start of the film, he has it written in his cell.
I saw that.
Excelsior to Pat is, and I quote, he's going to take all this negativity and use it as fuel to find a silver lining.
Hey, I wrote that.
Did you?
I did. Because I remember watching the film and I wrote that down as he said it.
But yeah, that's how he describes it. He says it a lot as like he's like Excelsior, and then he like just to block out any of the bad stuff that's going on. It's his philosophy in a way, I guess, for staying positive.
So I mean, I noticed it. I noticed it too in the cell that he was in. And I looked it up, not thinking much of it, just thinking, okay, I want to see what the definition of this word is. Maybe it's important to part of the film, but it's not really specific to this film. Immediately, you look up Excelsior, you see the Silver Lining Playbook pop up. I'm like, oh, geez, I guess I might be spoiling something here.
Shit, that's funny. I think I looked it up too, and I saw, like the way it's written on the cell, like it's like you could buy a t-shirt with that or some shit. Did you actually see what it meant?
Yeah, I got the definition at that point too.
What does it mean?
It's the same meaning that he says, like taking all the negativity and making it into something positive to find a silver lining.
Oh, okay. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Like
the whole theme of like optimism and positivity throughout the film.
I think it's good to be positive, but of course with measures. So we see it with Pat, how the positivity in many ways backfires on him, where it creates him to try so hard to be positive that it makes him more frustrated. You see him flip out over, I already used this example, over the ending of a book because it wasn't a positive ending. Well, now you see he's not being very positive anymore.
Yeah.
He flips out when he sees other people are not having a great life, or they are trying to bring, I guess, more of a dark side to him. He doesn't connect well at all with Tiffany at first because he sees himself as a positive person trying to do better for himself while Tiffany's just sleeping around, and has severe mental issues while he doesn't, apparently. So it very much covers up the authenticity of who he was. Prevents him from being very authentic.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's like that's a huge thing in the film because he's not accepting his craziness. He's not accepting of the bad parts of his life, which I think him and Tiffany pair so well together in that way because she's very negative.
Yeah.
I think I wrote it down, but I don't remember what it was exactly. But she says a line about how that's life. Like that's what real life is like. Oh, it's when she's talking about Lord of the Flies.
Oh yeah.
She gives a quick summary of Lord of the Flies, and she said, "Because kids are horrible, life is horrible. That's just how it is." But I like her pairing with Pat because she brings Pat back down to earth. Because like you do have to be realistic. Like life is hard. Like you can't not view any of the hard stuff and ignore it. You can't reject it. But on the other hand, you can't also be like super negative and only view life in a bad way. Where Pat views things very positively or like tries to strive for the best in any situation, I think is good. But like you said, with measure, like you have to be reasonable with that as well.
I think this reminds me a lot of Jesse and Celine. Just the opposite way around. I know there's been occurrences where we would say like, oh, maybe it flipped and flopped a bit, but like you see at the very end of the trilogy where Jesse says to Celine, well, yeah, we fight. Yeah, we have issues, but that's love and that's real. Something like that.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what Tiffany's saying here at the end of whatever is going on in Lord of the Flies. I never read that book. I'm not very literate.
Did you read Lord of the Flies?
I didn't have to. Actually, I probably did. I just don't know how to read, so it doesn't matter. No, I wasn't in the same class as you in high school at that time, and we didn't have
Lord
it in
of
our
the Flies
curriculum.
was like an earlier book. I might be mistaken.
It wasn't in our curriculum.
Oh, that sucks. It's a good book.
I'll go back and read it for you.
You read A Farewell to Arms though, right?
I did.
Yeah,
I've read that one.
A Farewell to Arms is a terrible book. It's not terrible, but the ending is truly sad. It's truly sad. So
they are quite opposite in how they are.
Yeah.
And it balances each other out, I think.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Which I think is a good pairing. I like that you mentioned the Before trilogy too, because it's like it's an interesting way to like bounce characters off when you have like opposing philosophies and they like complement each other even though they're opposing.
I think it helps keep each other grounded.
Yeah.
Another one, one that I'll mention is the marital failures that we see here. I like this film for the aspect of like the challenging topics that they bring up: mental illness, marital issues, and I guess like these conflicts and personalities perhaps. But the marital failures, you'll see we are keep forgetting names. Pat and his ex-wife, they fought over being cheated on, and then Tiffany has a dead husband, and so to reconcile that, you'd think is pretty difficult, and that should have like a significant toll on each other. You see, they handle it in very different ways. So I thought it would be cool to show in a film that like marriage isn't always perfect, and you will have marriages that don't work, and it's okay to go on and find a different partner too. So to be able to work that into a film in a way that isn't really that tells it well in a way that doesn't make people upset, perhaps. I don't know. I thought it was neat.
Yeah, it's definitely I mean, it fits with the whole philosophy of the movie of like finding a silver lining. Like both of these people in very different ways have had like sad and tragic ends to their marriage, but they're able to find love at the end. And it's different.
I mean, and it goes with the theme of imperfection.
Yeah. There's
a lot of imperfection in this film.
Yeah. And I think it's funny, like Pat's philosophy still holds, like if you just meld it with Tiffany's, like just acknowledging that things can be imperfect, but like seeing the positivity within them. I think Pat would just ignore all of the negative parts, but seeing both is good because life isn't perfect. But it's still beautiful.
I mean, that's where we see Pat's chasing after what he thinks is perfect to find out, well, you know, things aren't perfect and it's better to accept it that way.
Yeah. The last one I have here is just on mental illness. I think we touched on it too, but I find it interesting. There's like a very like us versus them kind of thing throughout the film where people view themselves as like different than those who like in the film are like crazy. There's even like there's a line when they're watching a game and Danny visits. It's one of the first time that Danny visits the house and he's watching the game and Pat Sr. sits him down in the chair and like he's playing with the remotes and stuff. Pat says a line, Pat Jr. says a line about how people like us, like maybe we know something that you don't. And it reminds me a little bit of like what Tiffany would say, like people like us, we're true to ourselves. Like it's just an interesting way to view mental illness, maybe where I don't even know how to describe it.
They share a connection, and you don't really see Pat be true to that, but you see still there in a different scene where those colors come through, where he acknowledges that he is different and shares a connection with somebody. But I think it's like funny where he'll draw the line of who he's comfortable with sharing a connection with. Chris Tucker, he can share a connection with. Jennifer Lawrence, he can't.
Because I guess Chris Tucker doesn't have any issues that wouldn't be bad in Nikki's eyes or whatever.
That might be it. That's probably what it is.
There's a thing that happens in the movie too when they're dropping him off to the Eagles game. And Pat Sr.'s talking about how he's been kicked out because he got in so many fights. And then Pat Jr.'s like, Pat is the one that brings it up to his dad. Like, oh yeah, like because you got in so many fights, you got kicked out here. Maybe we're not so different, Dad. And they're like, but maybe that's not a bad thing. And the dad's like, I mean, maybe it's not. And they kind of have like I guess a moment of connection that goes beyond just the whole sport thing that they connect on, but they connect on like who they are. Like even though Pat has an actual mental illness, him and his dad are very similar, like with their anger, with the explosions, and like his dad may not have a mental illness, but they're still similar. They're still like human. So they experience anger, they experience like those emotions. So it's like connecting them in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was one of the first signs of them being able to connect, at least through the film. I find another theme, and just to close off on themes, because I know we're going over on time a bit, was their superstition. And I think it ties in here too, because we're seeing in that game day, any game day is all about like making sure that everything's positioned correctly. Yeah. So the Eagles will win the game. They call it the juju. So it was very big for Pat Sr. to have Pat Jr. come to the Eagles game. Even though I don't think he was going to be there physically, like you just mentioned, because he's not allowed into the stadium, he was to arrive. And it came out later after that game, after they got into a huge fight, the Eagles lost, and they're all fighting in the house now. Tiffany comes there, and Tiffany's like, look, every time that Pat is with me, the Eagles win. And she lists off like 3 or 4 different games of when they were doing dance rehearsals together that the Eagles ended up winning the game. And so this is what builds up the plot to be able to say, okay, let's make this parlay of the Eagles will this actually goes into one of my favorite scenes, so let's just do that too.
Yeah, go for it.
The scene where they create the parlay, so many things happen. I think it's the moment where Pat's dad learns to appreciate Tiffany a little bit more, even though she suffers from a mental illness. Apparently, Pat's mom was already on board with Tiffany. I think she saw it as a way to have him have somebody to be able to connect with while he can't connect with his ex-wife at all and struggling with that. But you see in this scene, because Tiffany's actually familiar with football, she calls out the record history of what the results were for many games and to say, okay, well, look, the juju is working in my favor of whenever Pat is with me, we win games. So that's where Pat Sr. is like, you know what? You're right. And you see that dawn on him and actually start liking Tiffany a little bit more, I think. And so that also then sets up the plot to be able to make the parlay. The parlay, and we talked about it early on in the episode, was the Eagles will be playing Dallas Cowboys. I think the person that they're betting against, his favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys, so it heightens the stakes. It heightens the stakes a lot. And that falls on the same day that they have the dance competition. And the best you can score in a dance competition is 10. Tiffany and Pat are not great dancers. They're decent dancers. And so they were willing to bet that they would score halfway through 10 at 5. So that all sets everything up. And now like the plot has thickened. And I think that made it part of my favorite scene. I just want to check here real quick if there's anything else that I enjoyed the scene from. This is also when you see that Pat realized that Nikki didn't actually write the letter. So a lot happened.
Yeah,
a lot happened.
Right. Yeah. I mentioned that part too. Yeah.
Because it's in this scene too where Pat doesn't want the parlay to happen, and he kind of has an explosion and walks out. But right before he walks out, Tiffany says something about reading the signs, and it resonates with him that he recalled that being in the letter. He reads the letter and he sees that being in the letter. He's like, he connects the dots at this point to say Tiffany must have wrote this letter.
Yeah.
He doesn't unveil that until into the end of the movie, which you brought up already.
Before we get into, I guess, towards the ending of the film, I will say I do really like that scene too, because that's it's like the culmination of everything, and it sets the stage for like the ending of the movie. Like it like everything is built upon that one thing, so it's really cool. My scene, or one of them, is really early. This is a really quick one, but it's touching on like the whole positivity thing. I think this is a good case of Pat's positivity.
Okay.
And I find this scene so funny. It's when Jake, his brother, is visiting the house for the first time during a game, and he shows up out of nowhere. Yes. He's just upstairs, and he comes down, and you notice earlier in the film that Jake's picture, like high school or college photo, is up and Pat's is down, like it's not nailed on the wall. Mm-hmm. So just showing how the family views the siblings.
I didn't understand that at first.
Yeah, and then at the end of the film, they put Pat's back on the wall, like showing that he's back in the family. I don't know, whatever. But the brother comes. And he goes up to Pat and he's like, well, I got an offer to become partner at my firm. I just bought a new house. I'm engaged. You lost your job. Your wife left you. You lost your house. And he says, I don't even know what to say to you. Like, everything in my life is going good. Everything in your life is going bad. Like, I don't know what to say to you. Like, I can't relate to you. I can't talk to you. And Pat is silent. He looks at him for a moment and he's like, as my friend Danny would say, I've got nothing but love for you, brother. And he hugs him. And that scene is just so cute to me because it's just with siblings, I'm sure you know, like you have a sibling that they're doing really well. They might be doing better than you, or even like friends. Like there's different levels of success in life, but having that positivity of just being happy for somebody that you love, like just because somebody is doing better than you financially or doing better than you in relationships. It's not a point where you can't connect. It's a point where you should connect. Like you should be happy for them. Like you're my brother. You're my friend. Mm-hmm. I'm happy for you.
You should be proud.
Yeah, and I think it's really beautiful. I think it's one of the few cases where Pat's like silver lining positivity thing is like put to good use, because instead of like getting angry or like blowing up, he's just happy for his brother. And they have a nice moment together.
That truly was a beautiful scene. I think that's something you should just bookmark and like open up anytime you're feeling down.
settling down. Yeah. I mean, I like that quote. I think about that quote often. Like I've got nothing but love for you, brother. It's a nice quote. I'll just talk about this one scene because the other one I have is the ending of the movie, and I think is that what yours are, or did you have one earlier in the film?
No, mine's towards the end. As well.
Yours is the ending of the movie, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll do
right
one
before running out to Tiffany.
Okay, so I'll do one that's like in the middle of the movie. This is my favorite scene of the whole movie. Hands down, it's the reason why I love this movie.
Okay.
It's towards the middle of the film. Pat is sleeping. He's back from like dance practice with Tiffany. Robert De Niro, Pat Sr., comes and visits him. He wakes him up and he tells him, "Hey, can you come down and watch the game? The Eagles are on." And then he starts to get teary eyed and he tells his son, Pat, I really just wish you would spend a little more time with me. I want you to come down, just watch the Eagles, talk about the Eagles, like, whatever. And he gets very emotional and he says, he apologized and he says, like, maybe I didn't spend enough time with you growing up and maybe I spent too much time with your brother. And he says, I couldn't understand your behavior. I didn't know how to handle it. So he's basically admitting that he's sorry. He's sorry for not being able to be there for his son. It's a really sad, I'm getting emotional right now. It's a really sad scene because I feel like it's the thing that a lot of parents probably deal with, not being able to connect with somebody because of how they are. It's not easy. I think being a parent is like the scariest thing ever, because you can mess up in so many ways. But he couldn't relate to his son because of his behavior, probably because of the mental illness was stuff that existed when he was younger too. And the only thing that he feels that he could connect with his son is through football. Yeah. And he just wants him to come and watch it with him. And I think it kind of throughout the film, you understand that that's what Pat Sr.'s character is all about, like watching football, but you really understand why at that moment, that's all he can connect to his son with. And it's very sad.
And it's perhaps a great scene because he's able to be honest about that his dad realizes, I have failed you. I failed you to be able to connect with you in any other way than through this. And this segues perfectly into mine because this is when I feel like he was able to get past that a little bit, actually. Towards the end, and I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, Pat is talking to Nikki and he comes back to find out where Tiffany went. And he doesn't see Tiffany. He asks his dad, where did she go? I might have a quote here, and I do. He tells Pat that she left and you should go after her. What the quote is you got to pay attention to the signs. When life reaches out with a moment like this, it's a sin if you don't reach back. It will haunt you for the rest of your days like a curse. So, one, he says something about signs, which is just a common saying that resonates with Tiffany, at least, because that's something that she says a few times throughout the film.
It's a big thing in the film, like juju, the signs, like
and this is him actually being able to like see past anything beyond sports to say like, I understand that Tiffany's important to you, and you should go after her now. And so that culminates the film into him chasing after her, and I think that's part of what one of your last scenes are.
Yeah, so I looked through it and I saw that that ending scene is one that I really like too. So I just wrote the part that's right after that. So we're just talking about the whole ending of the movie right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, well. So Pat chases after Tiffany. It's very reflective of Tiffany chasing after Pat, where he's like following her and he's like, "Hey," like where she would say, "Hey."
That's
to him.
True.
And he finds her and he says, "I have one last letter for you." She's upset because she thinks it's another letter for Nikki. And he's like, "No, just read this. If you don't want to ever talk to me again, you don't have to after you just read this." And I wrote down what his letter was. The only way you could beat my crazy was by doing something crazy yourself. Thank you. I love you. I knew it from the minute I met you. I'm sorry it took me so long to catch up. I just got stuck. Pat. And that's his letter.
I love it.
But it's the big reveal. I mean, as a viewer, you already knew like that he kind of you knew that he knew what was up.
Yeah.
Like the whole like trick that they were trying to put on him of getting him to do the dance because Nikki was going to be there. But he reveals that he loves her and he knew it from the moment he met her, which you can kind of, I think, rewatching the film, you can see the signs of it. There's a lot of things where he starts to like defend her, or he changes his mindset based off their conversations. He's obviously very clearly in love with her. Like there's scenes of when they're dancing, and there's something there. But you get the big reveal that he loved her from the moment he met her. He was just so obsessed with, so fixated on this whole idea of getting Nikki back that he couldn't like be honest with himself. And it's beautiful.
Cut scene. Beautiful.
The one thing I just wanted to add just on these scenes is David O. Russell, the director of this movie. He has a son that has bipolar disorder. Right. So the film was very personal to him. The scene that we spoke about where Robert De Niro gets really emotional, he wasn't supposed to cry. He only cried because Robert De Niro also has a adopted son who has autism. So I think he there's interviews. I'll send them to you after this because it's very like touching. But there's interviews where Robert De Niro gets very emotional talking about this movie, just because he relates so much to the whole idea that Pat Sr. just wants to get his son on his feet. And like I guess it's that struggle because as a parent, you want to support your child financially. But it's like that wall that you hit where you can do only so much to them. But like when mental illness becomes a thing, like there's a limit to what you can do besides like getting them help. So it's like that whole thing. I think Robert De Niro really related to that. The director really related to that. It's just the struggle of a parent, like with someone who has those issues. It's a very personal film to everyone involved.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess that might be one of the bigger themes we should have talked about a little bit more earlier on. Just like serving as a parent.
Yeah, parenthood. And I think like it's a thing that exists in the background. It's not like it would be interesting to see like more of that, I think, just the struggle for both of them.
Yeah.
Both of the parents. But at any rate.
I mean, I think it carries a lot more weight given that the director and one of the main actors has a lot of experience with that.
Yeah.
Or relates a lot to it. But yeah. Let's jump down to filmmaking.
Really quickly. This movie has one of my favorite soundtracks out of any film.
Really?
They have a lot of original music and also just
I didn't know they had original music.
The Bob Dylan songs. I'll send you their score. They have like a good score. They have a Halloween song that plays in the background during the diner scene, which I used in The Haunting of NJ. And it was this Halloween song, a cover of the Monster Mash that was made just for this movie.
A cover of the Monster Mash.
Yeah.
And you used that in The Haunting of NJ.
Yeah.
I don't remember this. You'll have to send it to me.
I'll send it to you. But the main thing I just want to touch on the filmmaking, maybe you noticed it. There's a lot of like swooshing. Like the camera like follows people, but in like a very like there's the jogging scenes and the camera will like follow their legs and like move up and like it feels like a very fluid kind of motion. It's like the camera has like a personality in a way, like it moves and flows throughout the scenes. In the scene I really love that really shows that is they play Girl from the North Country. Remember that scene? Do you know that song?
No.
They play a Bob Dylan song called Girl from the North Country. And it's like a 3-minute dance sequence where they're just like practicing the dance.
Okay.
And that whole scene is just only song and them dancing, and like it's very beautiful.
There's a 3-minute scene of them dancing.
Yeah.
Oh, I must have stopped during that part.
You might. But I really
and
like
it was
that
a Bob
song.
Dylan song.
It's a Bob Dylan Johnny Cash like duo cover of that song. Yeah. That's pretty much it. It reminds me a lot of like Before Trilogy. It's a very natural seeming movie. Like the lighting isn't super dramatic. It's not it doesn't feel like you just feel like you're watching people like exist. It doesn't have the naturalistic thing of the Before Trilogy where you're like a fly on the wall, but I feel like it's because this movie the camera movement and everything has like character with like the way it like swooshes and like goes through.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't do it quite with following along with characters. Like it's just one straight narrative of what's going on moment by moment, like it was with the Before Trilogy. But yeah, I mean, it did have a natural touch to it, and maybe like the swooshing was also something you'd notice a lot in the explosive episodes of Pat, because those explosive episodes, like I'm sure the cameras were moving around a lot to be able to capture the dramatic moment of like him like being in that therapy room or therapy lobby, knocking down all the books, throwing a book outside of the window, and you see them bring out the camera to see the book actually fall down onto the grass. To capture different motions. Yeah,
there's a lot of movement. I think there's no static camera, like the camera that's filming us just on a tripod. Like the camera, even when is just on somebody. It's like it's kind of moving, like someone's holding it on their shoulder. So it's not like a static movie. Like it has like energy to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all we can say about it.
Yeah, for real.
Without like beating a dead horse.
Yeah. So let's get into closing off then.
Yeah.
So I'll do mine first because this is your film. I think you have a lot more to say. So I just gave the film an 8.5, which is a pretty good rating. I can understand why critics love the film with all the different elements it really touches. We see this dichotomy between Tiffany and Pat. We see a lot of the mental issues that they're going through. We see the struggles with parenthood, like you brought up, and we see a lot of the dynamics with the family, perhaps. So it's a great film. I don't know if I would really find it something that I would resonate as much as with it as you do, where you watch this in moments that you're down. This doesn't really bring a touch of like maybe bittersweetness to me that I would want to return to all that much. I think it's a great film. I might watch it again sometime in the future. I don't know if I'd watch it like 5-6 different times like you have. But it was enjoyable to sit through, and it wasn't difficult to sit through either.
Yeah, I like the review. I like you. I like the movie. I give it a 9 out of 10. It is my favorite movie. I think you mentioned that's a good point too. Like I feel like there's a lot of nostalgic, like emotional connection to it that goes beyond just like the movie. Like there are better movies. It's not what like many people would consider one of the best movies of all time. But yeah, I mean, I do relate to it on like a more like emotional level. I think I relate to the characters a lot. Something that I added that I think is funny is the movie is not perfect, but just like the whole theme of the movie, I think that's part of why I like it. Like even the imperfections in the movie, the fact that it's not like the best movie ever, like it's still my like little movie that I like. So like it feels like it's my little thing. Like it's not there's people who love Iron Man or love Spider-Man. Like those are their favorite movies of all time, which like
my second favorite movie is Spider-Man 3.
Spider-Man 3. Yep. Really?
I watched that maybe like 10-20 times.
That's a controversial opinion, I think. We'll talk about that off the podcast. Wait, I'm just trying to see if I missed anything cute that I wrote here, because sometimes I write cute stuff.
You do.
No, it's I touched upon this already, like about how the characters complement each other. But yeah, I mean, I like this movie. I love this movie. The last thing I'll say, because I have some behind the scenes stuff that I brought here.
Oh, I did see that.
You watched it? Is it playing right now? Oh, it almost played. There's a deleted ending to this movie, which I kind of like more, because it shows the family after, I guess a little while after. In the movie, there's just a song playing, and you see Pat and Tiffany kiss at the end while like the family's just like making food and like, hanging out. But in the deleted scene, there's like kind of an argument that goes on, and the family's yelling because there's the annoying neighbor. He's wearing a Vikings jersey, and Tiffany and Pat Sr. want to kick him out. And then Pat Jr. wants him to come in, and he's like upset why they would do that. And then it ends up just being like a joke. But I like the chaos. Like I would prefer that as the ending, like the chaos in it, because it just shows that it's not a fairy tale movie. Like, especially with Pat and Tiffany, because like they kind of like are not yelling, but they're like bugging each other and like messing around with each other, because that's how life is. Like you'll have little arguments, especially like those two that are very kind of crazy. You would imagine that there would be like other crazy outbursts, and
I mean,
as life goes on.
That also touches on the comedy and like the chaotic comedy that this film really tries to hold. I mean, it's what might be a serious moment until you realize that it's not a serious moment. Yeah. It's not a big deal that they're kicking this person out. They're bringing him right back in. Yeah. And even if they did seriously feel like he has to get out the house because he's a Vikings fan, that's still kind of funny.
Yeah. And it's just, I feel like it's a more enjoyable ending because like the characters stay true to who they are. But yeah, I mean, this was fun.
It was.
I think we're done. Do you have any closing thoughts, comments?
It was nice.
It was nice.
It was a nice movie.
Yeah. Let's let people know what we're going to be talking about next week.
Yeah. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but it looks like we'll be talking about The Social Network.
The Social Network, America's favorite rom-com.
Yeah, made after the largest company in the world called Meta.
Yep. We're watching the Meta movie about the Zuck.
Yeah, they just rebranded. Used to be called the Facebook.
Oh, we're dating ourselves. Imagine years from now.
But then they've rebranded again, called
Facebook.
Facebook.
Drop the.
Drop the the.
I'm gonna tell the Zuck to drop the Met and just call it All right. Yeah, we have exciting stuff. I think by the time you watch this, by the time you watch this, you'll have the Social Network coming out. We have other film movie stuff planned. What is the holiday? Are we in December right now when this comes out?
You know, we did miss Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We were talking about dating.
Thanksgiving was last week, I think, by the time you're hearing this. So happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed your turkey and didn't burn it. I sure didn't.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
Got things to do.